This old, dingy field recorder is probably the most important piece of gear I make sure to pack for every single shoot, wedding, etc, etc. It's your boy Ryan here, and today's video is a little bit different from videos in the past. I'm going to be doing, I guess you can call it a product review, a gear review. But to me, this is essential. Like, I need this piece of gear. But besides that, I'm going to be talking to you guys about the Zoom H2N and why it is literally glued to my hip on every shoot. The Zoom H2N is kind of like the Honda Civic. It's reliable, it does the job great, and then after a while it starts to smell or stink, and then you get people saying, dude, why don't you just get a new car? And you're just like, no, it's my baby. I can't do that. This piece of gear is so essential to me, but before we kind of get into my workflow of things, how I incorporate this into literally everything, let's talk about some specs. All right, so while I have everything pulled up here, let's just go through all the specs. It's a 4-track recorder with an onboard 5-mic array. It's 24-bit, a built-in speaker, supports up to 32GB card, has no internal storage. It has a pre-record buffer, remote control capability, a tuner, and a metronome. It does not support time code. The recording time of them is kind of dependent on the memory card you have and the format of SD card that you are going to be using, but it is going to be not an issue unless you are planning to do, over 12 hours of shooting continuously. It does not have phantom power, about 20 hours of battery life. It takes a regular SD card, not a micro, and then a quarter 20 thread at the bottom of the base. And right now it is priced at $165. And I think that clears up all the important specs. Of course, there's probably some that I'm missing and others that are a little bit more important. And if you guys would like to go see all the specs and see the price for yourself, go down in the description below. So let's get into it deeper. I think as filmmakers and videographers, we get so caught up in some new technology that we all kind of think as the industry norm. We get so caught up in time code and 32-bit flow and all these sorts of things that are great on their own. I think we get so caught up in trying to keep up with the industry norm that we forget that we have to do things that work best for ourselves. And this especially goes for the beginners. When I first started out, time code and 32-bit float wasn't really important 10 years ago. It wasn't really talked about like it is today. I feel like with all these new amazing audio things, a lot of beginners will start to think, well, I have to get time code. I have to get 32-bit flow. And for a beginner, it's so much information that can get difficult, I guess, is the word I'm trying to find. Difficult. But for me, when I first started, this is the first piece of gear I bought for audio. I didn't buy a lav. This is the first thing. And I still have it today. I still use it today, 10 years later. But that goes for, say, 32-bit float and time code. They're all great things. I use them. I incorporate them to all my work as well. But I think it's so dependent on my situation and what I'm doing. Like I said, 10 years later, I'm still using this freaking thing. I like using this field recorder because it makes my workflow in Premiere a whole lot easier. And the audio from this microphone sounds great as well. I mean, the microphone's sitting right in front of me. In a world where you're going to be using this microphone as a microphone for an interview is close to never. A lot of times for interviews, you're just going to be micing people up. And that's going to be the true and found way to do it all. And the way I incorporate this into my workflow is it captures ambient audio for me. Dialogue is so important, especially when you're crafting a wedding film or you're crafting a documentary or a corporate video. And using ambient sounds can really make or break your film. Another thing that I really enjoy about this one is that there's no time code. This is, I think of it as a separate system. It's not going to throw out a time code that I have to make sure is jam synced with everything else. This is just a recorder for itself. It's just going to record whenever you hit the button. And I don't have to worry about levels. I don't have to worry if it gets kicked over. I don't have to worry about it all too much. It's just another audio source for me to use later in Premiere. I screw the bad boy up on a Joby tripod and I toss it somewhere and I leave it. Don't touch it. So then later on, I go into Premiere, and this is where it helps immensely. So let's just use a wedding ceremony at a church, for example. A lot of the times you're not gonna be able to tap into the PA system at the church to record the sounds that you need. And along with that, a lot of the times the pastor, preacher, officiant, whoever will say no to your mic. You won't even be able to mic them up. So then that will leave you with two other audio sources up at the altar, the bride and the groom. And I know a lot of people in the wedding industry are not really accustomed to tossing a mic on the bride just yet, so it's the groom. And then you're going to be relying on the groom's audio through the whole entire video. And that's how this comes in this example. I will toss this on a big stand, either in front of a speaker or kind of up hidden behind everybody. This will capture the preacher's audio, and this will capture the audio of the entire ceremony. It'll capture all the nice things, it'll capture all the ambient sound, the babies crying, the people coughing, all those things. But it's nice to use this as a main audio source. To use this as your main audio source instead of your cameras, because, and I think one thing that bothers me the most when I watch a ceremony film, or pretty much any film in general, is that when everybody's kind of in the same scene and then they transfer the audio from one camera to the other using the on-camera audio, and it sounds completely different. Doesn't matter what camera you have. And so that's why I use this, is so this is gonna be my main audio throughout the entire ceremony until they do speeches, or until someone starts talking, or until the music is done. And then it cuts to strictly lapel mics. And then so in Premiere, when I go to edit it, it makes everything so quick and easy. So quick and easy. All I have to do is synchronize all the footage that I shot that day up to this recorder's audio. I get rid of all the other on-camera audio that I had that day, and then I only use the lapel mics and then this. And then I just cut and splice whenever someone says something to the lapel mics or this, and I'm done with audio for that. And then this is also so good when they do the exit. A lot of the times with a lapel mic and the bride and groom kiss and they start walking down, the mics will get blown out, or it's just not that good of audio because you're trying to capture everybody clapping and screaming on a guy's lapel mic. It doesn't sound good. So this captures a beautiful, crisp, ambient tone of everybody cheering, crying, laughing, all those sorts of things when they walk down the aisle. And let's just throw out another example for, let's just say, corporate interviews or an interview for a documentary. I will usually have this on the setting where it will capture a 4-channel audio. So record all the audio front to back in kind of a surround sound type of system. And I'll put that directly on the ground in front of the interviewee and the interviewer. Wow, that's a word right there. Interviewee, interviewer, wow. But I'll put it directly on the ground right in front of them between those two having a conversation. And so let's just say in post in a documentary, if I want to go back and I want to add kind of a more realism kind of shot where the interviewee asks them a question, I have the audio of them asking that question instead of just trying to scrounge up the audio from the interviewers. Wow, hold on. And so I have the question that the interviewer asked the interviewee instead of trying to scrounge up that audio from the interviewee's lapel mic. And actually just recently, that new documentary with Nickelodeon and Dan Schneider, those interviews used a lot of this style where they had a microphone kind of hanging above as a ambient audio source. They used a lot of the questions as transitional factors in the kind of final project, the final film, the whatever, final episodes. What do you like doing for fun?
What do I like doing for fun? I like to hang out with my kids.
I can't stress enough, even with a corporate interview, I do the same thing as for a wedding. I match everything up in Premiere and I just select all the on-camera audio, delete. And then after this, all I have to do is find where everything is peaking when the person's answering the question, and I just kind of cut, splice, and it's all done there. And because this is compact and small, I could put this thing freaking anywhere. Some other scenarios that I've put this through is at the beginning of the day when the bride or groom has a letter they would like to read to each other. Instead of spending a whole bunch of time trying to mic up the bride and groom before they read these letters, I'll just toss this puppy right down right in front of them, hide it out of the way, capture it, and then I have good clean audio from this. Of course, I have to tell everybody else in the room and make sure everything else is super quiet, but at least I got it here and I didn't have to finagle with a lav mic. But that's situational if there's not enough time to toss a lav on there. I toss a lav on there 99% of the time, but if I can't, this is a saving grace. And a lot of the other times I use it for sound effects stuff. For example, just recently over the summer, I shot a wedding and I keep this thing on me. I keep this thing in my little fanny pouch on my hip. And I pulled it out a few times throughout the day. And the bride and groom, they lived on their own property with a big waterfall. And the waterfall was beautiful. And but it was raining that day. And so I knew I couldn't get, and I wanted to use the waterfall in the film. And we were doing portraits in front of their waterfall, but I knew that I was not going to be able to get a good sounding waterfall sound effect online because it was raining that day. So it was a whole bunch of sounds kind of mixed into one. And of course you can always make something like that work later down the road when you're editing, but it made it so much easier. All I did was pull this out, adjusted the gain, and put it right in front of the waterfall. I just sat there. 10 seconds, done. Moving on. And then so the final scenario where I've used this a lot is for the wedding speeches. At the very end of their speech, you know, you get everybody's glasses tinging and you get all that beautiful sound of people cheering and clapping afterwards. This is the go-to for that. The go-to. And so when it's all said and done, at the end of the day, when you use this, depending on your workflow, it may only be 5 seconds. But that 5 seconds could make or break the entire film. You never know. And I think at the end of the day, no matter what, it's always so good to have as many audio sources as you can on the wedding day because you never know when something could get messed up. And so having one that was recording literally everything with no fuss, no hassle, will save you. So like I said, this is all dependent on your workflow, but this is what I've found that helps me the most and something that is literally attached to my hip the entire wedding day, no matter what. So with all that being said, if you guys enjoyed this video whatsoever, feel free to go down below, hit that like, hit that subscribe, leave a comment down below. If you guys use this recorder or any recorder in general, I'd like to know what everybody's kind of getting their grubby paws on and using. And so with all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. That is all I've got for you. Do all those sorts of fun things, like, subscribe, whatever. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.